Matthew Evans, a wealthy man in his late 70s, sat alone in his sleek silver Mercedes, tapping his thumb rhythmically against the steering wheel. The air conditioner hummed faintly, barely keeping the oppressive Kentucky heat at bay. Retired from a lucrative career in finance, Matthew was accustomed to life working seamlessly in his favor. Yet, there he was, stranded on a remote road with a flat tire, far from the comforts of his opulent mansion on the outskirts of town. He had tried calling roadside assistance, but the lack of cell signal left him no choice but to wait. Frustration began to bubble up when he noticed a figure approaching, a boy, no older than 13 or 14, clad in a faded t-shirt and worn sneakers. The boy walked with purpose, his expression focused. As the boy neared the car, his eyes flicked to the flat tire before meeting Matthew's gaze. "Got a flat, sir?" he asked, his voice steady and polite. "Yes, I do," Matthew replied, a mixture of relief and unease in his tone. "I've been trying to call for help, but I can't get a signal." The boy offered a small, confident smile. "I can help with that," he said, crouching beside the tire without hesitation. "My grandpa taught me how to change a tire last summer. Do you have a spare?" Matthew gestured toward the trunk, watching as the boy efficiently retrieved the necessary tools. The boy worked quickly, his hands moving with a quiet confidence that belied his age. As Matthew observed, a strange sense of humility washed over him, something he hadn't felt in years. When the boy finally stood up, wiping his hands on his jeans, he offered a satisfied smile. "All done," he said simply. Matthew reached for his wallet, pulling out several bills. "Here, take this. I really appreciate your help." But the boy stepped back, raising his hand politely. "Thank you, sir, but I don't need anything. Just happy to help." Stunned, Matthew stood there, money in hand, as the boy turned and walked away, his silhouette growing smaller in the distance. Alone again, Matthew slipped the bills back into his wallet and climbed into his car. The rest of the drive home was filled with quiet reflection, his thoughts drifting back to the boy's quiet dignity and self-assuredness. That evening, Matthew sat in the study of his sprawling mansion, surrounded by shelves of books he rarely opened. His untouched dinner, a perfectly prepared steak and asparagus, rested on a nearby table as he sipped scotch and replayed the day's events in his mind. Matthew had met thousands of people in his lifetime, business partners, investors, employees. Every interaction had been transactional, built on expectations and favors. But this boy, this stranger, had helped him for no reason other than simple kindness. The boy's confident smile and modest demeanor lingered in Matthew's mind. He didn't have much, judging by his clothes and shoes, but he carried himself with an integrity Matthew had rarely encountered. The next morning, Matthew felt a pull he couldn't ignore. He needed to find the boy. Was it gratitude, guilt, or simple curiosity? Whatever it was, it compelled him to drive down the same road, searching for the boy. Hours passed as he stopped at gas stations and diners, asking about the boy. Most shrugged, but an older woman at a small cafe finally offered a lead. "Sounds like you're talking about Elijah," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "He's always helping folks. Lives with his mama over in Harlan." Harlan, Matthew repeated, committing the name to memory. The town of Harlan, nestled in the foothills of the Appalachians, was an hour away. The scenic drive barely registered as Matthew's mind raced with questions. What kind of life did this boy have? What kind of family raised someone like that? When Matthew arrived, he found the streets quiet, lined with modest homes. After a few inquiries, he was directed to a small house on the edge of town. The house was worn but tidy, its front porch sagging slightly. Matthew parked and hesitated, uncertain of what to say. Taking a deep breath, he knocked on the door. A moment later, it opened to reveal a woman in her early 40s. She looked tired but kind, her eyes sharp and curious as she regarded the unexpected visitor. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone cautious yet polite. Matthew straightened, unsure of how to begin. "I believe I met your son yesterday," he said. "Elijah, isn't it? Can I help you?" the woman asked, her tone cautious but kind. Matthew cleared his throat. "Good morning," he said, offering a polite smile. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I believe I met your son yesterday, Elijah, right? He helped me with a flat tire." Her expression softened, a small smile appearing. "That sounds like my Elijah," she said warmly. "He's always helping folks. I just wanted to thank him properly," Matthew continued. "He wouldn't accept anything from me yesterday." She nodded and stepped aside. "He's out back. You're welcome to wait." Matthew stepped inside, taking in the modest home. The furniture was old but well kept, the walls adorned with family photos and hand-drawn pictures, likely from a much younger Elijah. Though it was a far cry from his own pristine mansion with its expensive artwork, this house felt alive, filled with warmth. Following her to the backyard, Matthew found Elijah repairing a fence. The boy looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "Hey, mister," he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. "What are you doing here?" Matthew smiled, feeling an unexpected nervousness. "I wanted to thank you again," he said earnestly. "You helped me when I really needed it, and I couldn't stop thinking about it." Elijah shrugged, his expression easy and genuine. "It wasn't a big deal. It was to me," Matthew replied, his voice sincere. "I don't think you realize what a big deal it was." Elijah leaned against the fence, studying Matthew with quiet curiosity. "I don't see it like that," he said after a moment. "If someone needs help and I can do it, why wouldn't I?" The simplicity of the boy's logic struck Matthew. He glanced around the yard, taking in the mismatched fence boards, the sparse grass, and the old swing set with rusted chains. It was clear Elijah's family didn't have much, yet they made do with quiet dignity. "You've got a good head on your shoulders," Matthew said, genuinely impressed. "Your mother must be proud." Elijah grinned, glancing toward the house. "She works hard. I just try to help out where I can." Matthew stood silent for a moment, Elijah's words stirring memories of his own childhood in a similar home. His parents had taught him the value of hard work, lessons he had set aside in his pursuit of wealth. Now, standing in this yard, he felt a nostalgic ache for something he hadn't realized he'd lost. "I'd like to do something for you and your family," Matthew said at last. Elijah straightened, his expression wary. "We're okay, mister. We don't need anything." "It's not about need," Matthew insisted. "It's about what's right. You helped me, and I'd like to return the favor." Before Elijah could respond, his mother called from the porch. "Elijah, you better come inside and wash up before lunch," she said, then turned to Matthew. "Would you care to join us? It's nothing fancy, but you're welcome." Matthew hesitated, unaccustomed to such invitations. But there was a sincerity in her voice that left him no room to decline. "I'd like that," he said, following her inside. The kitchen smelled of freshly baked bread and roasted vegetables. The table was small, surrounded by mismatched chairs, but it was set with care. Matthew took a seat, feeling slightly out of place in his tailored suit amidst the humble surroundings. Elijah joined them after washing his hands, his easy smile never faltering. As they ate, Matthew found himself drawn into the conversation. Elijah spoke of school, friends, and dreams of becoming an engineer. His mother shared stories about the community, her quiet pride evident in her voice. Matthew listened, a warmth spreading through him. For all his wealth and success, his own home felt cold and empty compared to this modest house filled with laughter and connection. As they cleared the table, Matthew turned to Elijah's mother. "You've done a remarkable job raising him," he said. "He's got more heart than most people I know." Her eyes shone with gratitude. "Thank you. He's a good boy, but we've had our struggles. We've learned to appreciate the small things." Matthew nodded, his mind already racing. He didn't want to overstep, but he couldn't walk away without doing something for them. This family had given him a gift he hadn't realized he needed, a reminder of what truly mattered. That afternoon, Matthew left their home with a sense of clarity he hadn't felt in years. As he drove back to his estate, plans began forming in his mind. This wasn't about charity, it was about honoring Elijah's selflessness and his family's resilience. The next morning, Matthew made calls, lots of them. Matthew reached out to old colleagues, contractors, and suppliers. By midday, a plan was set in motion. Within a week, trucks and workers began arriving at Elijah's home. Matthew stood on the sidewalk, clipboard in hand, directing the renovations as Elijah and his mother looked on in disbelief. "You didn't have to do this," Elijah's mother said, her voice trembling as she watched the crew unload supplies. "We've managed fine on our own." Matthew turned to her, his expression earnest. "You've done more than manage, you've thrived. But you gave me something I didn't know I was missing. Let me give back." Elijah was quieter than usual, standing next to his mother with a thoughtful look on his face. Matthew knelt slightly to meet his gaze. "You taught me something, Elijah. Helping people isn't about money, it's about showing up. I want to show up for you." Over the next several weeks, the house underwent a transformation. The sagging porch was replaced with sturdy wood, the roof repaired, and the rusty swing set in the backyard was swapped for a new one. Inside, walls were painted, floors polished, and the kitchen was upgraded with modern appliances. At first, Elijah tried to help with the renovations, carrying planks and sweeping debris, but Matthew gently insisted he take a break. Your job, Matthew said with a smile, is to enjoy being a kid for a little while. Still, Elijah couldn't resist sneaking out to watch the crew work. His eyes lit up with curiosity as he observed them measure, cut, and build. One of the workers, a burly man named Joe, noticed his interest and invited him to help measure wood planks. Before long, Elijah was asking questions about tools and construction, his enthusiasm infectious. Matthew watched from a distance, pride swelling in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt like he was doing something meaningful, something beyond himself. The boy's energy reminded him of his own youthful ambition, long before life became a blur of boardrooms and stock portfolios. One evening, as the sun dipped low, the project was nearing its end. Elijah and his mother stood on the porch, marveling at the transformation. "This isn't just a house anymore," Elijah's mother said, her voice choked with emotion. "It's a home. I don't know how we can ever thank you." Matthew shook his head, his tone soft. "You already have. You reminded me of what life is supposed to be about: family, connection, and purpose. I think I'm the one who should be thanking you." The final day of the renovation felt like a celebration. Neighbors stopped by to admire the changes, bringing smiles and small gifts, freshly baked bread, jars of homemade jam, and even a potted plant. Elijah's laughter echoed through the yard as he showed his friends the new swing set and freshly painted rooms. Matthew leaned against the sturdy new porch railing, watching the scene unfold. Simple, unfiltered joy washed over him, a kind of joy he hadn't felt in years. Elijah's mother approached, handing him a glass of iced tea. "You've done more than fix a house," she said softly. "You've given us hope. And I think you've found something for yourself too." Matthew nodded, taking a sip. "I have," he admitted. "I spent so many years chasing things I thought mattered: money, status, influence. But none of it ever felt like this." As the sun set, Elijah joined them on the porch, his boundless energy still intact. He looked at Matthew thoughtfully. "Mr. Matthew," he began, "I've been thinking about what you did for us. I want to do something like that one day. I want to help people too." Matthew placed a hand on Elijah's shoulder, his voice steady. "You already are, Elijah. Your kindness set all of this in motion. Don't ever lose that." The three of them sat together, watching the sky shift from gold to deep orange. The warmth of the day lingered, but it was the deeper warmth, connection, gratitude, and shared purpose, that filled their hearts. When it was time for Matthew to leave, Elijah and his mother walked him to his car. Their smiles, Elijah's wide grin and his mother's tearful gratitude, were etched into Matthew's memory as he drove away. This wasn't the end, he realized. It was the beginning of a new chapter for all their lives. In the weeks that followed, Elijah's curiosity about construction blossomed into a passion. Matthew arranged for him to shadow the workers who had helped renovate the house, and Elijah soaked up every bit of knowledge with enthusiasm. Matthew, in turn, found himself drawn back to Harlan again and again. Each visit felt less like a trip and more like coming home. He no longer felt like an outsider in their lives, he was part of something bigger. And for the first time in years, he was content. The story ended where it began, in a small town with a big heart. One act of kindness from a young boy had reminded an old man of life's greatest lesson: it's not about what you have, but what you give.